This is the Bijou Baker. I'm Maria. Salt, 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 salt. It is the flavor of the world, and it is the light of the world. And there's so many great things about salt. But if you have your dietary restrictions and health restrictions, it's not all of a sudden it's not so great. And all of a sudden you realize when you have to watch your salt, you realize it's everywhere. I'm just going to talk to you about a few different types of salt and then things that you can do to keep that flavor without adding any salt. And the salt substitutions, not the substitutions that you buy in the store. Those substitutions have potassium chloride, and though that's fine, some people get a metallic taste from that. I don't use that. I don't know that product. I'm not going to touch on that product aside from what I just said. Table salt. Everyone knows table salt. One of the cheapest cooking ingredients you could buy, and there's several different kinds. So just the regular old shaker, put it on your stuff kind of salt. The difference between that and like sea salt is the texture and the processing of it. So table salt is you go in the mines and it's processed from underground mines, and then it's ground up and chopped up and stuff like that, and to different coarse levels. It contains additives to keep it from clumping, and then they add more iodine. And iodine is the stuff that makes it taste great, but and it's good for to maintain a healthy thyroid, and it's good for flavor, of course. But that's the part where people get into trouble with it just messes up your levels sometimes. Sea salt. Sea salt is really kind of fun and really kind of cool, and there are so many different colors and flavors. Now, they're all going to be different depending on the region in which the sea that it's coming from. So everything that lives in that sea, let's say in Jordan, I'm so just pulling, the River Jordan, everything there is going to taste so much different. Even the seafood is going to taste so much different because of the elements and the enzymes that are in, and the minerals that are in the water. So sea salt, what happens is that they just kind of let the water evaporate from, they have a big old bucket of water, okay. So the water is going to evaporate, and what's left is the salt, that white stuff, like when you go swimming at the beach and you get that white film on you, that's what it is. And of course, like I said, depending on the region, you're going to get different flavors, you're going to get different colors. But in the end, at one point, I had black Himalayan salt, pink Himalayan salt, gray Himalayan salt. I had raw Egyptian salt. I had just a whole countertop of every cool looking salt I could buy. If it was out there, I wanted to try it, and I wanted to cook with it, and I wanted to be that girl. I tasted no difference, none whatsoever. So needless to say, those salts are gone. If you taste a difference, then okay. I'm just saying my palate, it's not getting anything. So I'm just sticking with what I know. Now, kosher salt. Way back in the time of, say, I don't know, Noah, Moses, all those guys, Moses and his boys, they used kosher salt as a way of processing and drying out. No, what word am I looking for? I'm looking for a particular word. Darn it. Oh my gosh. Preventing. No. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hold on. That's the word. That's the word. So they keep it. They'll take a big piece of meat, and they'll cover the whole thing in kosher salt. Okay. And this way it's preserved. And almost kind of like jerky, their cooking and our cooking, definitely not the same thing. So they had a big piece of meat, and they were going to be roaming the world for a while. They didn't really care if it had sauces and gravies with it, right? So it would pull all the moisture out, all the liquid out, which is what salt does. And then they would preserve it. And when it was time to eat, they'd shake it off, brush it off, clean it, slice it, cut it, whatever. And they have everything they need. They didn't really even cook it. So there's a lot. I really, really, really recommend you guys Google salt, because there's a whole lot more than this girl knows. And clearly I'm fumbling it up. But I will tell you this. There are a bunch of different ways to keep flavor without adding any salt. And no one would know that there's no salt added. I keep this little here. This is popcorn salt. I'll take regular table salt, or I'll even take kosher salt, and I'll grind it because I want it fine, super, super fine. The finer it is, the more it's going to dissolve, the faster it's going to dissolve, the easier it's going to dissolve. So let's say I'm making whipped cream. Let's say I'm making a whipped cream, whatever. And I want salt in there because I want it to work with all the flavors, right? But I don't want anyone to bite into a chunk of salt, no matter how small the table salt is, most especially kosher salt. The biggest difference in salts are, like I said, the processing and the textures. Kosher salts are bigger, but I don't like them bigger. So I'm making whipped cream. I'm going to use the finest salt in a liquid. So the whipped cream, it's going to dissolve that salt. So if I make a batch of cookies, that's not a liquid, that's a dough. So if I put regular salt in there, you'll taste it more. Isn't that weird? You will, same amount, but you'll taste it more. Actually, I use less popcorn salt in baking than regular salt. But that's just my preference. You can still use, rarely more than a teaspoon of salt, because it really goes on. So you're making a steak, or you're making vegetables. Let's say you're going to grill vegetables. You get a little hot oil and or butter, and then you're going to put your vegetables in. You're going to put the salt on top, because you're going to be pulling out the moisture from those salt, which is what you want to do, especially if you're doing the grilling kind of thing, right? Are we getting that? Okay. Forgive me if I'm confusing you, because there really is so much about salt. So there's also a finishing salt. A fleur de sal, which is a finishing salt. That thing is going to be, it's flakier. I'll show you. This is the finishing salt. Okay, you can see it even looks pretty. I mean, it's kind of neat looking. It's like wet sand, I guess, but it's not as iodine-y. No, that's not a word. It will give you just that little bit of salt. People will have like a caramel sea salt, and they think that's great and wonderful, and it is. I'm not gonna lie. This is a finer salt to put on, so you don't actually crunch into the kosher salt. I know. As I'm talking, I think I'm confusing you, and that's gonna just chomp me. But so we got the table salt, we got the popcorn salt, we've got the finishing salt. Now, when it comes to cooking, when I was in California, I was cooking for people who were salt restricted, really, really restricted. Well, I did not want them to miss out on the food. So a couple of things that I used, and I would highly, highly recommend. Anytime you have to take one thing out, put something equal or better involved instead. Herbs and spices. I'm telling you guys, herbs and spices, especially if it's herbs and spices beyond your comfort zone. Let's just say scrambled eggs, okay? Salt and pepper is usually, okay? So put a little bit of milk, and in that milk, when you're scrambling the eggs, put in some paprika, put in some oregano, put in some garlic, put in some onion powder, put in some things that you already like the taste of. My favorite thing is herbes de Provence. There's about 9 or 10, 11 or 12 different herbs in here that you're grounding. You're going to ground up. I'll show you how to make this in another video. So you're just going to ground these herbs up, and then you're just going to sprinkle them on. And instead of salt and pepper, actually, this is all you need when you're going to make soups or stews or anything. This will do it for you. Another thing to add, and I'm telling you, this stuff I think is God's cologne. It's truffle oil. You only need a few drops, depending on how much you're making. Let's say you're making spaghetti sauce, okay? You don't need more than, for a big pot, you don't need more than a tablespoon. There's so many different flavors in just the, clearly, I use it a lot. I'm ready for it. And you can see, that's oh, what a dirty bottle. That's all there is to it. That's the only truffle that's in this oil. And you take just, I mean, just a little bit. All I'm gonna do is just wet my finger. It's not even really, even the smell, oh man, it feels like I just took a bite of prime rib. I mean, I'm not quite sure what's in here, baby, but let me tell you what. When you're wanting flavor and you don't really know what to do, I taught my granddaughter how to make deviled eggs, and she has perfected it better than me. Her deviled eggs are phenomenal. This is her magic oil, she calls it. She looks for the truffle oil, and sure enough, people are always just amazed at what is that? What's in there? There's something in there. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's tricks. But if you don't have truffle oil, see if you can find truffle salt. What? Salt with salt? Yeah. Herbs, spices. Use those things instead of the salt. You're not gonna miss it. You're not gonna miss it. Strange, right? Hard to believe. These things are not going to pull the liquid out of it like salt does when you're cooking with it, but it's definitely going to put in what you think you're missing. That's it. I wanted to get this out to you. I've been wanting to get this out to you for a while, so it's out. You'll probably have a ton of questions, and let me just apologize now for being flighty. Not that this is an excuse, but yesterday we got a new added member to the family. We got Aspen, a new baby. He was at the on the kill list at the same shelter that we got our other dog in California. Isn't that a trip? Same shelter. We're in Arizona, and he came from there to be with us. So he's good boy. He's a good boy. He just needs to learn who's in charge. That really is. I've got dog trained hands. Can you see that? Oh, they hurt. It's all right. I've got this. All right. So that's my pitiful excuse. That is a lot of information on salt. I'm telling you guys, I really, really recommend you Google the word salt, and learn for yourselves, because it's an important thing. I mean, if this is a health issue thing, then yeah, we have to pay attention. So you matter to me. All right, my friends. Until next time, happy baking.
Ah, that was fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe.